We're Hasani and Jeff, and we're a real couple with real problems who almost called it quits.
I was very frustrated. I became very disconnected, very jaded and cold.
We have 4 children, going on 20 years of marriage, and we practice what we preach.
Our mission, to change the way couples relate to one another and teach them the skills needed to improve the quality of their relationships. This is the Couples Academy Show.
Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Couples Academy Show. My name is Hasani.
I'm Jeff. And
we are here. We're here from 2 different parts of the country to connect with you wherever you may be around the world. We are still in our series on rebuilding trust, regaining trust. We've been talking about the importance of doing that and what it takes, the steps that are needed. And we're gonna continue in that conversation by talking about regaining trust through touch, the power of touch. But before we get started, make sure you take the time to like, share, and subscribe. Let the people know that we are here. Getting ready to really break some things down and excited about what's to come. It's the summertime, a lot going on during the summer. We have a lot to serve you. So make sure you stay connected with us. Go on our website at couplesacademy.org to find out about what we're doing. But we have our last chance weekend coming up the second weekend in July, and we're excited about that. Many people have said, what is this thing all about? What is the impact? Is it something for me? Well, let's take a look at this quick testimonial to see what the impact of a last chance weekend is.
My name is Jocelyn Joseph. Me and my husband Keith are from Houston, Texas. We came here looking for a miracle. We didn't know what to expect. We just trusted the process after looking at some of Hasani and Danielle's videos. So the first thing that we noticed was the property. It just blew us away from the long paved, gated private estate with all the wonderful amenities. The grounds were beautiful. There's a pool, there's a fire pit, everything that you need for comforts as a 5-star hotel. The food was delicious. So we had all the modern comforts, but more importantly, we got what we came here for. The first day was very, very, very intense. And they told us it would be, but we didn't expect it to impact us the way that we did. We knew it would be difficult for some people, but not us. And as a matter of fact, I got up and I was like, I'm done. We can stay for the rest of the trip and enjoy the hospitality, but I'm done. And Danielle took the time to talk to both me and Keith, and I've noticed that they've done that with a lot of people. It wasn't just about a set program. They catered to your individual needs as well as a couple. They did everything to ensure the success of your relationship. So after talking to us, she told me that if I just trusted the process, that it would get better. And I didn't see how that would happen. But the very next day, we had a breakthrough. Everything that they do is very intentional. From a very groundbreaking field trip where we were blindfolded and didn't know we were going to end up, and it turned out to be the highlight of the trip, I feel. We had a couple's walk up a very steep hill, and that was even intentional. Everything was done with the purpose. They had the skills, and we needed somebody like that. We needed somebody who had the skills, who we felt that we could trust with our lives to get us back on track. They prepared themselves educationally, and they are spiritual Bible based at the core. And that was important to us as well. If you trust the process, it works. I wanted to be one of those couples at the end of the videos that we saw that came in downtrodden, didn't have any hope, And at the end, they were smiling and holding hands. And we were like, we want to be like that. Whatever they do, we don't know what it is, but can we have that? And we do. So I know that even after 31 years, we are going to live the rest of our lives together, and not only together, but happily together. So thank you for that.
See, this is what it's about, right? It's about testimonials like this that share the impact. You remember that couple?
I absolutely do, and I got something for you. It's going to make you a little jealous, and actually it's good timing because I had no idea you were going to play Jocelyn.
Okay.
They're in Dubai right now.
They're in Dubai?
Right now.
Oh, my God. My favorite place on the planet Earth.
Exactly. Yeah, they're actually doing well. They took a trip to Dubai, and they're living out their dreams.
See, this is the thing, because, when people come here, they come out of desperation, and they cannot see beyond their pain. Mm-hmm. So Dubai is not even a figment of their imagination. It's so far from their reality because of what they're going through. And what's awesome, and it ties into what we're talking about today, because we're talking about rebuilding trust through touch. What she said is so important. People come, and this happens all the time, whether it's a private marriage intensive or last chance weekend, people come as a couple completely disconnected and separated. They're on opposite ends of a table. They're on opposite ends of a couch. Their backs are turned towards each other. There's no eye contact. There is just nothing. Like, it's just, the atmosphere is cold, right? It's very stale, and something shifts in that we can experience that changes things. We say that every step we take is a trust building step that gets you closer to reconciliation with your spouse. And what's the interesting is, she says, I wanted to be like one of those couples who at the end they're holding hands. And that's what happens. Like, when you talk about collapsing time, what it would normally take most people months or years in terms of restoring trust, they're able to begin that process over that weekend, and they're able to now touch in ways that they couldn't before. It's just an amazing experience.
Absolutely. I 100% agree. It's just, you can't actually imagine the power of getting it all done. And we're talking about touch here, right? So people what they don't want to admit is when they're like, get off me, don't touch me, they're actually acting tough to hide their fear of intimacy. And the only way to get beyond your fears and to gain and be in a position of power is to actually embrace them. Okay. And so you can still have boundaries. You can still set limits. You may not be ready for ultimate intimacy, but we're talking about non-sexual touch here. We're talking about holding hands and just trying to see if this can work. You're sitting in a place of stagnation, looking at each other with contempt every single day, feeling the tension of every conversation, just doing the business part of the marriage. And that pain that you're in is shutting you down from all kinds of experiences in life. You think you're functioning in the regular world the way you want to. It's just when I get home with my spouse, I'm not there. But the truth of the matter is, it impacts every aspect of your life. It impacts your children in ways you cannot even imagine. You are teaching them how to love by the way that you show love, and by resisting the opportunity for non-sexual contact. What you've actually done is you've put yourself in a mental trap, and you've put your children in a mental trap where they're learning bad habits and bad behaviors that are actually going to possibly attract the same kinds of things that you're trying to avoid into their lives, because that's how they see it's supposed to be.
Powerful, powerful point, Jeff. And it's interesting because the very thing that we resist in our relationships is oftentimes the very thing that we need. I mean, we are wired, right? And we are created and designed for companionship and for connection. When you think about a baby coming out of the womb, it's been said that when babies do not receive enough physical touch, it has an impact on them in terms of their development. And in some rare cases, there have been some babies who have died because they did not get enough touch. It makes me think of when we go to church, oftentimes before the sermon comes, the pastor will say, all right, now, before we get started with the service, greet your neighbor, just, introduce yourself, give them a pound, give them a handshake, give them a hug, connection. When you meet someone for the first time, a business meeting, because you're away on business, one of the first things you do to initiate that interaction, you shake their hand, right? It means something. It represents something. It's symbolic of something. It says, listen, you can trust me. We can break bread. We can do business together. We can come together. And so when you're in a relationship and you're like, don't touch me, get your hands off of me. Have you ever been in an argument with your spouse and the last thing you want them to do is touch you? I remember Danielle saying when we were going through our season of hell, how we would be in the kitchen. Now, we had a very small house, kitchen small. So she would just literally back up and walk against the wall just so that there would be no physical contact, because she had a wall up and she did not want to give me the impression that things were okay. So when couples stop touching, it is a sign that something is wrong in the relationship beyond sex, right? Because listen, we know many people engage in duty sex, or many people have sexless marriages, and sexless marriages oftentimes occur not because there's anything physically wrong, but something, relationally or emotionally wrong. But beyond sex, just touch. Like, don't come near me. Jeff, I'm sure you can relate, being in bed with your wife,
definitely.
but there's a gap, there's a distance between the two of you because you don't need to touch me.
Exactly. I mean, and the crazy, like I said, it's that fear, right? So I want you to understand that courage and strength do not exist without vulnerability. So you think you're portraying strength, but every weak animal on the planet has this flare up, don't touch me reaction. Every weak animal on the planet, lizards will flap out, birds will raise up and spread their wings. And these are because they're prey. It's victimization. These are attitudes of victimization. When you're truly strong, you're not flaring up, you're walking tall. Okay. You don't have a problem. I'm reminded of Psalms 23. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You're having a feast when you know there's danger around you. Right? And we have to have that sense of inner self. What we're dealing with is a truly, truly spiritual problem where we're feeling insecurity and we're not dealing with our own insecurity, and we think we're handling it by pushing other people away. If we become strong within ourselves and really connect to the vulnerability that put us in the situation in the first place, we know it may not be your fault, but it is your responsibility. We're not placing blame here. It's not a blame game. What we're talking about is you have an ability to respond to the situation. And the truth of the matter is holding hands, a simple caress, a friendship thing. Because what I see in this situation, what I experienced in this situation when I was in it, is I was actually making physical contact with more people in general, men, women, etc., than I was with the person who I'm sharing a bed with. And the only time we made a connection was accidentally when things go bump in the night and we didn't even know we were touching each other. If we were awake, we'd be like separated really quickly. And so it's a really odd thing to share a bed with somebody, to lie next to them and draw this imaginary line of non-touch. If you really step back and pull yourself off the chessboard, you'll see how weird and unnatural this is and how unhealthy it really is. You can set your boundaries, hold hands, talk, have sincere conversations with touch, because until those defensive walls come out, you're going to be throwing punches at each other for no reason at all. For imaginary boogeymen who aren't even present in your life right now.
I think the point you're making, I mean, you used a powerful word. It's unnatural. And that's the thing about it. Like, it's not even natural to be in relationship with someone and to not touch, to not have any. And the thing about it is, Jeff, the longer you go without touching, the harder it is to begin touching again.
Yeah, I hear these couples who you could tell they were madly in love when they met, and now they're literally going through these things where I don't know how to do that. What do you mean you don't know how to do that? When you were driven by your desire, you knew how to do it. You know how to be, and you know how to be romantic. You know how to be non-sexual and all these kinds of things. But once that desire has faded, you don't know the processes to rebuild it. It's the same exact things. It's the exact same things that you did when you weren't sleeping together, but you were just dating. And that's what it's going to take to rebuild the trust, to rebuild the relationship. I promise you that if you really, really took an introspective look at what happened, you were already being reduced in your non-intimate contact long before the infidelity or the betrayal of whatever kind it was. You were already ceasing to do those things. So how in the world do you think that the thing that got you there, the non-contact, how is that going to help you gain control over your situation? It's crazy how we actually do the opposite of what needs to be done to restore our relationships.
Jeff, it's not a matter of how. People say how.
Exactly.
You know how, but your why's not strong enough. And oftentimes people have these internal conversations with themselves that build up such a defense and such a case as to why it shouldn't happen. There's reasons why people are resistant to touch. One of the things is after a betrayal, sometimes people think it's too soon to begin to nourish the relationship again. So listen, it's too soon for this. We're not ready for this. I need more time. I'm still hurting. So I don't want to do anything that would even begin to work towards the healing or restoration in our relationship. So we're going to be hands off, right? And so the reality is, I learned this principle a long time ago. When your hands are off your spouse, God can't put his hands on, right? There's a blessing that takes place when two people in a relationship come together. There's power in that unity. You're in alignment. Even the Bible says, when you have aught and unforgiveness and when you're not in a good relationship with your spouse and you pray, those prayers hit the ceiling and come back down. They're not even effective because there's this major disconnect. And so we're praying to God and our hands are up and God's trying to put his hands on and he can't because our hands are disconnected from each other. And you have to understand, you are in a threefold covenant between you, your partner, and God. And your inability to show up the right way in your relationship really impacts the spiritual impact that can take place in your particular relationship. And so you're reaching to God for help, but not willing to do what his principles and his systems are telling you to do. And you're wondering why things don't go well, because you're allowing the enemy to get in your mind. You said it before, and people are resonating with it. It's a fear. Mm-hmm. And a fear is a false evidence appearing real. And fear will either drive you to do things that you should not do, or they will stop and stifle and halt you from doing the things that you should do. And so we say this all the time. You've got to feel the fear and do it anyway. Because I'm going to tell you, as weird, because you use the word weird and awkward, as weird and as awkward as touch may be, because to your point, when we were first dating, it was easy. It was natural and it felt good. But now it feels mechanical and it feels, I don't know, disingenuous. And I just don't feel that it's authentic and it's weird. And when you touch me like that, it's just not comfortable. Well, as we know, the 4 levels of competency, the more you do it, the easier it gets over the course of time. And so it's about your consistency in doing the right thing long enough, because what's weird now, it's going to be comfortable at some point later on.
Listen, when you're a child and you get up and you learn how to walk, now all you want to do is walk. Then walking just becomes normal and you treat it like it's nothing. But what ends up happening is we get injured, right? And then we have some bedtime for healing and recovery. There is the necessary physical time for recovery. We understand that. We're not saying that there isn't. But I watch people who are sitting in recovery 5 and 6 years later, and I'm like, what are you doing? The truth of the matter is, when you have that injury and you're on bed rest for 5, 6, 7 days, 2 weeks, whatever it is, after a major surgery or a major injury, you're going to have somebody walk in your room, like Hasani's walking in your room right now and saying, get up, we got to go to physical therapy. We got to do PT. And when you get up, it feels awkward. It feels weird. You just want to lay back down because, this is too much work to learn how to walk again. Walking is normal and natural, but you don't want to walk again. And so you see other people sitting up and laid up in their beds, not making moves towards becoming normal. So you decided that you're going to do the same thing too. I want you to understand that it is common to be a divorcee. It is common to have broken families. It is common to have bad relationships with your spouse. It is common to destroy the lives of your children. This is why we have all this stuff going on in the world today, because it's too common. I want you to be uncommon. I want you to be rare, and I want you to be special, and I want you to get up and take the challenge and spend as much time walking. We understand you may not be able to run the marathon right now, but get up and walk at least.
You know, I want to jump to this comment. Frida says, it's impossible to hold hands with someone you don't like very much. Can you really want to hold hands later out of pure habit? First of all, that is a lie that you are telling yourself, that it is impossible. And guess what? The reality is, whatever you choose to believe, you are right. If you believe it's impossible, it's going to be impossible because you choose to believe it. And so what happens is, the battlefield of the mind is the one thing that oftentimes can help us or hurt, harm, and hinder us. And you have stinking thinking. Listen, this is in love, because what you're saying is what many people are struggling with, who are watching this right now. And they've built up this deeply embedded belief system that would give them the impression that they can't do what is obvious to do because of their own feelings, their own thoughts, their own fears, their own inadequacies, insecurities, their own frustrations, whatever the case may be. And the reality is, it is a lie. There's nothing impossible about it. And guess what? When you're in a dark place, these are the things that you have to do to get out of the dark place. You don't wait till things get better before you begin doing things. You do things in order to shift you from the season that you're in to the season that you want to be in. Jeff, what are we going to say?
If you apply this logic to anything, racism, nothing will get solved. War, nothing will get solved. If you apply this logic of it's impossible to embrace someone that has hurt you or that you don't like very much, right? If you embrace that concept and that philosophy and applied it to anything else in life, we'd all be at war with everyone, our parents, our family, our sister, our brothers, because there's been times that I'm going to tell you I didn't like my mama. There's times I didn't like my child. There's times I didn't like very much. Do you think if I looked at my child, I don't like him very much, so I'm not going near him, I'm not touching him? Does that logic apply then? If it doesn't apply then it doesn't apply anywhere. It's a false narrative that's being created in your mind to protect yourself because you still have fear and insecurity that you need to deal with. And that's exactly what it is.
I would encourage you, do it. Touch your spouse. If right now it's out of habit, if right now it's out of duty, do it. Because when you begin doing it long enough, consistent enough, all of a sudden you'll realize, this is not that bad. This is not as bad as I thought it would be. Your thoughts and your feelings begin to change because you're now in an activity that begins to change you. When we've seen, listen, 99% of the people who come to us are in this space, and we've seen it. As I said in the beginning, they come disconnected, now touching, backs turned towards each other. By the end of it, they're now touching, they're embracing, they're crying together. There's a vulnerability that they've stepped into, right? Because they were willing to tear down those walls, and that's what's necessary for you. Jay has a comment. Say says, my wife doesn't like to touch and show affection, and now she's carrying this to our kids. I don't understand why she's like this. Now, there could be an incalculable number of reasons why she's like this. Now, if she's not showing affection to the children, I would think that it's beyond anything that's happening between you and your spouse. Unfortunately, there's some people who are raised in environments where there was no touch. They did not demonstrate their love through touch. And so because I didn't really receive hugs from my mom and my dad, and I didn't see it expressed between them. I mean, they would say, I love you, but they never demonstrated it physically. And so therefore, that's why I cringe, or I have an aversion, or it's just not my thing. And, you know, some people are weird. Like when you touch them, it's just like you're touching them and they're like, and it's just such a weird thing, right? And so the reality is, there may be some things internally that she is struggling with that's now manifesting not only in the marital relationship, but in the parent-child relationship. And so this is why we say personal transformation can be done through personal counseling and coaching, which is so critically important. Like at the end of the day, we say this all the time. If I'm going to have the best relationship that I can have, I got to become my best self. And oftentimes they're the things that we're holding on to that are getting in the way of allowing us to truly connect and be vulnerable with our spouse and with our family. But to your point, Jeff, this touch thing is so critically important. And, you know, the reality is some couples, to this person's point, may have never been very touchy-feely. So to now incorporate that seems so weird, and this is not who we are, and so this is not what we do. And what we're saying is doing more of the same will get you more of the same. So if you want more of the same, keep doing what you're doing or refuse to do what you need to do. But if you want something new and different, you've got to stretch. You've got to go beyond your comfort zone and begin to do the impossible.
This is it right here. This is the fear I'm talking about. Monica, I just want to say welcome to the show. But she says, my thing is, what message would you be giving the other person by being lovey-dovey? No one said lovey-dovey, first of all, if the other person keeps hurting you in the same way. What you're actually mentioning is your fear, that you may be sending the wrong message. So that is a you thing. You need to internalize and have a conversation about this. Listen, I want you to understand, like, I know we need to be here in this moment, and I want to try to make things work. In order to do that, I understand we need to touch, hold hands, walk in the park, have long conversations. We need to connect. But I want to make sure you understand that I'm not sending you a message that everything is honky-dory. You can just say that. I'm not sending you a message that things are honky-dory. I want to see some work. And what you have to do is be strong enough to guard your own internal fear of your own desire to reconnect, which is what you're protecting yourself from by pushing them away, and actually just say, okay, I'm going to be strong in this area and a little, but we're going to have baby steps to getting back to where we were. And I'm going to trust is earned. I'm 100% behind that. You see, if you listen to anything we say in here, we're like honesty, transparency, but there has to be progress shown. Because what I watch is when couples play these war games where it's like, oh, you did this, then the other person did that, and then you didn't touch, and I didn't touch, and then you said this, and I said that, and they do this tit for tat thing. There will never be a connection again until there's a breakthrough. That's why I pushed Last Chance Weekend, because we force the emotions to come out. It actually is forced on you. I don't want you to understand. I can't get into the how and the why and the where and the what. What I'm saying is it is actually an environment that is conducive to get the pain out so the healing process can begin. And it's done in a safe environment where there's no pressure, so to speak, but you're going to want to get it out. The things that you haven't said, the things that you haven't felt. And so I encourage all of you, if you're in this space, I'm seeing a lot of people in this space right now in the comments, you should really consider a Last Chance Weekend.
And Jeff, thank you for saying that. And I'm going to tell you why. Because touch by yourself, when I say by yourself, meaning if you just decide, you know what, I'm just going to start touching my spouse again, it possibly could give a wrong mixed message. But what we're talking about is allowing us or someone who's qualified to guide you through a process of rebuilding. You have to understand, we just did 2 episodes talking about the steps and the techniques to restore trust in a relationship. This is one of many, right? But the reason why we're talking about touch today is because it's such a critical element that is a part of the trust building process. And so you can't do half of it, a portion of it, a percentage of it. You've got to do all of it. And one of the aspects of it is touch. And so when guided the right way, and this is what he's talking about, the Last Chance Weekend or something like that, it all begins to make sense. Right now, as you're hearing it, maybe you didn't watch the other shows, or maybe you didn't. You're just like, I can do that other stuff, but this, I don't know. And so that's why you need somebody guiding you. Because when you don't feel like doing something, you do it anyway because you're trusting the process. And the reality is, if you're going to trust your spouse when there's existing hurt and pain, it's going to take someone other than you to be in the driver's seat to get you to a place that you ultimately want to be. And that's the mistake people make. I'm going to be in the driver's seat. I'm going to determine how fast we go, what lane we go in, what direction, what map, and that's the problem. Because whatever you're doing, your spouse has a natural resistance to. Whatever your spouse is doing, you have a natural resistance to. But when you both are in the back seat with your seatbelt on and are willing to allow somebody else to steer that vehicle and take you on a journey, you will get to a destination that you never thought was possible. So now the impossible becomes possible because you're doing it the right way. Here's another comment. My husband and I have a great relationship, but lately he has said no to sex. It has been a few months. I don't think he's cheating. Is this a problem or just a season in marriage?
Okay, I want you to understand it could be a season in marriage. It could be the worst in the world. But there's also another thing that a lot of men don't want to confront or deal with. Men at the age of 35 and above often have testosterone decreases that lead and other things. It could also be diet and different things that they're doing. They may have drinking problems that could lower their libido. All kinds of things can contribute to a lower libido, but they may have performance anxiety. And that performance anxiety it's becoming more and more common. And things like hormone therapy and explore those things. If you can have that open, honest, and real conversation, if you have a strong enough connection to have those conversations, it would be a good idea to just get tested. It's nothing to prick your finger. You put it on some paper. Look, I'm sitting here admitting to it. I'm going through that process right now, not so much because of lower libido, but it also causes weight gain and loss of energy. And sometimes you're just like, I don't feel like I used to feel. And so someone that encouraged me, hey, go take this test. You prick your finger, you tap 4 pieces of paper, you send it in, and the doctor makes a recommendation. And so I would encourage you to have a discussion about that.
Now, Jeff, thank you so much. You hit that right on the head. What a brilliant answer. And that is so spot on, because you have to understand, Jeff and I are the leaders of Foundry. Foundry is a 12-week program for men. And in that program, we are able to have conversations that oftentimes spouses are uncomfortable having with their wives. And so these are some of the concerns that they deal with, but don't know how to address, don't know how to broach the topic, don't know what they should do. And a lot of times they suffer in silence and they shut things down, and their spouse is confused because we've had a great relationship. Sex was great. And so what you're doing is now you're creating so much anxiety and frustration and suspicion in your spouse, because now they're thinking, well, is he cheating? Is something going on? Is it porn? Like, what is it? And so this is why it's so critically important to learn how to effectively communicate and have vulnerable conversations. When we talk about the 7 levels of intimacy, this is what we're talking about. Talking about your feelings, talking about your fears, your failures, and all of those things, so that this type of stuff can come out. Because what happens is men sit on this stuff for too long. And if they just went earlier and addressed the issue earlier, issues could have been prevented. But things get progressively worse because we hide from our own spouse.
And there's a lot of things. I've watched these kinds of situations where the man actually had a low test problem or had a bad diet, and that affected his libido. And now the wife is thinking he doesn't want me anymore. And then these things build on top of each other. Then you're accusing him of cheating and wanting someone else. And he's like, no, I'm not cheating. Then all of a sudden, next thing you know, he is actually cheating, because he's not getting the affection at home and the connection. And the environment didn't feel safe for them to have the conversation.
Yeah.
And so
it's
gotta be a safe environment when you have a conversation. You can't just be like, yo, you got low T, go get checked out.
Low T, erectile dysfunction, whatever it is.
Yes.
Because now I begin to challenge. Now I'm like, am I even a man? Like, man, I can't even be a man to my own wife. And I can't reveal this because as men, we want to make our wives feel good. And, there's just so much.
It's all the hiding and the lies. If you can openly communicate, bring transparency to a situation, babe, I have to have a honest conversation with you. I've had a few problems lately. I think I need to go get checked out. It's not as big of a deal, but men have a hard time doing that. And that's because they're not going to have that conversation with you. And when they talk to their buddies about it, they're getting bad advice because their buddies are not in good situations where they could do that. Oh man, don't tell her that. And the truth of the matter is, look, some of these men You need to put them in our hands and Foundry. Some of these situations are things that need to be done through Last Chance Weekend. Some of these situations, all of it, if you can build a strong connection and have open communication with your wife and spouse or husband, you won't need Couples Academy. But if you're having a problem getting there, you don't need us if you learn to do things the right way. But if you've never been around it, never been exposed to it, never been taught it, or never seen it in your life in any functional way where you have people around you, that's what we're here for. Because we've been through it and we fixed our situations. I love my wife. I get on here and have these conversations about honesty and transparency, knowing full well that if I were to misstep anywhere out in the world, somebody's standing around with a camera waiting to tell on me. And guess what? I want to be videotaped everywhere I go. I want my wife to have transparency. She could put a tracker in my phone, cameras in my car. I don't care. I wanted her to see what I do all day. Because for those who have nothing to hide nothing. Mm. And so we got to be more honest in our conversations with each other.
One of the best quotes you introduced me to, something I've been saying for years, but you gave me the part 2 to the part 1. And the part 1 is, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear, right? Mm-hmm. And ultimately what that means is, like, I could tell you something till you're blue in the face, but until you're ready to learn, nothing I say is you're going to receive it. But when you're ready, all of a sudden, boom, the teacher appears and you're able to become teachable and coachable and get the things that you need to transform your life. But the second part of that quote is, when the student is really ready, the teacher will disappear. That's the part I love, because that means that you don't become dependent and relying upon us for life. We're not your drug. We're not your hit. You're not totally dependent upon everything that we do for the rest of your marriage. You have empowered yourself. You're now doing the right thing, showing up the right way, have an amazing relationship. And so therefore, there's no need for Couples Academy in the same way that you've needed it from the beginning. When the student is really ready, the teacher will disappear. But until that time, you need to get ready. And that's what the Last Chance Weekend and all of our other programs are about. So listen, guys, thank you for tuning in. Go ahead.
One thing. Last thing, the best thing that has ever happened to me since I've become a heavier part of Couples Academy, I've always played in the background because me and Hasani have been brothers forever. The best thing in the world is when you see those couples who rise to the challenge and meet the occasion, and we no longer become their counselors. We become couples that can hang out together. That is the most beautiful thing, because now we're building a community and a family of loving couples who can look to each other and encourage each other and hold each other accountable. And that's the problem. None of us have that. And so come join the community, come join the family, get your problems taken care of, and then come hang out with us.
Isn't it awesome to know that some of the people who are sitting in the very seats at this Last Chance Weekend, and they've been in their pain and they've gone through hell, they were able to restore their relationships, get to a phenomenal place, then had a desire to say, you know what? Our marriage has been transformed. We want to make impact on other marriages, got trained, got certified, and are now sitting in the seat that we're in, coaching and training other people. That's what this is all about. It's the transformation. So listen, if you find yourself in a place of desperation, if you find yourself in a place of hopelessness, if you're justifying why you do not want to touch your spouse or have your spouse touch you, if you're still grieving and in pain, you need to check us out. Listen, thanks for tuning in. An amazing, amazing episode. Thank you, Jeff. We appreciate you for being who you are. We're going to end this episode by giving you a glimpse of the Last Chance Weekend. See you guys. Love you.